Hi, this is Dr. Weigand, Chief Medical Officer for National Church Residences. There have been a lot of questions that have been generated over the last week or two about the proper use of masks, not only the masks that you see in healthcare settings, but also homemade masks. Recently, the CDC actually started promoting the use of homemade masks. So I want to spend a little bit of time at the end of this podcast talking about that. But let's start with kind of what's considered the Cadillac of masks, and that is an N95 mask. And they come in different styles. This one, for example, is one you could sometimes find at Lowe's or Home Depot, and it has a filter in it, and it's mostly used for large particulate matter like sawdust and those types of applications. But this is actually pretty darn good for providing protection, but not quite as good as this mask, which is a surgical grade N95 mask that has been specifically fitted to my face and for my use. So it fits very comfortably but snugly against my face, and men should not have facial hair when they use any of these masks. And this will filter out about 95% of viral particles that are exposed to it. The surgical mask is the biggest workhorse, I would say, in our healthcare settings. So now that it's been recommended that in nursing home settings, assisted living settings, even in our affordable senior housing and hospice settings, these are what we should be wearing as much as possible, 100% of the time if possible. And this is called a surgical mask. It has a little metal frame in here, and sometimes they fit over your ears like this, but they should be pulled down under the chin and tight against the nose, and this will filter out somewhere between 50 and 80% of the particles that are exposed to it. Sometimes these will have a tie, which will be a little bit better, but these are very good. The only problem is you can't just have them over your mouth or over your nose. That does no good, because you can still breathe the virus in through your nostril or your mouth if you are taking that on and off. So the idea of the surgical mask is that you keep it on as much as possible. Avoid touching the outside of it unless you decontaminate your hand, because if you're breathing and the virus gets on the outside of the mask and it doesn't go through it, you can still inoculate yourself by touching the mask and then rubbing your eye, and then the mask was essentially useless in that case. But I would say that the vast majority of our use in our healthcare settings should be the surgical mask. The N95 masks are really supposed to be used for people who are treating patients that have coronavirus, the COVID-19 virus, and are providing personal care to them, or respiratory treatments, suctioning, or aerosol treatments for somebody who we know has COVID-19. So these are not really probably appropriate for everyday use. And let's spend a little bit of time thinking about homemade masks. So this is one, I won't try to put it on because it'll cause my glasses to fall off. This was not fit to me. But in the best of situations, homemade masks can provide almost as good a protection as surgical masks. And so this one is one that is produced, it has a very thick cotton material and a flannel on the back. And generally, it's felt that this can provide somewhere between 40 and almost up to 80% of protection against the virus, depending on what the materials are. Now, the more layers that you put on, the better the filtering, but the harder it is to feel comfortable. So what's recommended is using batik cotton, which I believe is a quilter's type cotton, and layering it with flannel. And sometimes you can put an extra layer in the middle of that with like a coffee filter. I've heard coffee filters are used. Even some like paper towels can be helpful. But in any case, anything is better than nothing. And in some cases, if these are done, and you can go online and study up on them, these can sometimes provide just as good a protection out in common settings like grocery stores, or if you're taking a walk. These can be very effective as well. You have to remember though that if you cough, the air that's expelled during a cough travels about 50 miles an hour, and it can, if you don't block the cough with either a mask or with your arm or your hand, it could actually spread virus up to 20 feet. If you sneeze, the air is actually expelled at 100 miles per hour, and it can actually spread 30 feet. And so you have to remember that these are great for blocking that, cutting down on the transmission of any viral particles, or just droplets that are expelled from coughing or sneezing. And so that's the reason we want to use them. You should always clean the homemade masks on a daily basis, and that's fine. The N95 masks can be cleaned. This one is a multi-use mask. This one really is not meant for any more than one-time use. So hopefully that is helpful for you. I will say one last thing. I'm sitting here looking outside the office, and the trees are in bloom, the flowers are in bloom, and it's getting to be the seasonal allergy season. And make sure that if you are susceptible to seasonal allergies, to use antihistamines to try to cut down on the number of sneezes and coughs that you might have. That'll help everybody. I hope that's helpful, and keep doing a good job out there. And if you have questions, feel free to reach out, and we'll try to answer them every Monday. Thank you.